Jordan Teaches Jiu Jitsu is the fastest growing YouTube channel in the industry, and his most popular videos involve him taking on an opponent much bigger than himself, because at the end of the day, that's probably why we signed up for Jiu Jitsu to begin with. And we want to know what's going through a black belt's head when they're dealing with a much larger opponent. And luckily for us, Jordan just had a match against a beast of a man named Cesar. And in this video, we're going to break down how Jordan was able to come out victorious and take home the belt on a cold evening up north. And if you're not familiar with Jordan's YouTube channel, he just made a video with $3,000 on the line. And he will also have a video breaking down his match with Cesar, so be sure to check that out. And I imagine that there's going to be a lot of people from Jordan's audience checking out my YouTube channel for the first time.
Welcome to the party, pal!
And what we do here is basically try to sift through all the garbage out there, so you're not wasting your training time practicing techniques that don't work against high-level resistance. And by watching and analyzing high-level BJJ competitions, my goal is to pick up on new trends and determine which techniques are working and which are not at the highest level of the sport. That way we can prioritize the most effective techniques and get the most out of our training. And I have been lucky enough to partner with people like Brandon and Lachlan Giles to offer you all discounts to their online learning platforms called BJJ 365 and Submeta. So basically, if you want to get better at no-gi jiu-jitsu, it's probably a good idea to subscribe, and let's dive into Jordan's match against Cesar. So like any jiu-jitsu match, we start standing up. And if you're a fan of Jordan, you know that he loves the fake guard pull ankle pick. And I imagine Cesar is well aware of this threat and is ready to defend it when Jordan tries it. So after a few more level changes, Jordan decides to use the Nicky Rod tactic, where you sit to kind of lull your opponent to sleep before going in for a takedown. Now, when Jordan shoots in on this double leg against someone much bigger than himself, it is very unlikely that he's going to finish that double leg with authority. And as someone who sucks at wrestling, I would probably just use this double leg to sit back to my guard. But Jordan gives us a little insight into his style of wrestling.
My style of wrestling is very upper body based. I really like body locks, especially against big guys. To get there, I focus on getting a deep underhook.
So Jordan first likes to establish a deep underhook and use that underhook to transition to a body lock. And against good people, oftentimes you're going to have to chain attacks together to get this result.
I shoot for head on the outside single, but John sprawls. So I switch to the body lock. It's really important to chain wrestle rather than grind through the first takedown you go for.
A very common form of chain wrestling is shooting in for a single leg. And as they throw in their wizard to defend, you transition up to the body lock. Or you can limp arm out of their whizzer and work your way towards the back. And as Jordan shoots in for this double leg, it looks like he has no intention of actually finishing the takedown. But instead, his priority is to get that deep underhook and work his way towards the body lock. But Cesar does a good job of pummeling his other hand inside, and Jordan's hand is not able to control the far hip as much as he would like. So despite Jordan's perfect head position, Cesar is able to defend the takedown and reset. And then Jordan decides to be the bigger man and pull guard.
Showtime.
And I think he decided to pull guard to start showcasing some of his jiu-jitsu.
Sorry, man.
But also to set up that ankle pick if he were to do it later on in the match.
I feel like if I pull guard now, maybe it'll be easier to trick Ian with the fake guard pull ankle pick again later in the round.
And on the ground, Jordan decides to play with a knee shield against an opponent who we will soon learn loves to body lock pass. And I still need to dig into this a little bit more, but I noticed that Felipe Pena tried to play butterfly half against Nicky Rod. And Nicky was able to successfully enter into the body lock, clear that butterfly hook, and put himself in chest-to-chest half guard, which is where black belts go to die.
Forces Pana back into the bottom of the half guard. This is where good black belts go to die, right here, flat back. Bottom of half guard.
And Gordon loves to play butterfly half guard, and he's used it throughout his whole career. But against Nicky Rod, he didn't fight too hard to insert that butterfly hook and instead was willing to play with that knee shield. And this is something we saw Luke Griffith doing as well in his match against Nicky Rod. So I'm not entirely sure as to why, and we're doing a deep dive into the body lock in our Discord, but I do think playing a butterfly half guard leaves you more vulnerable to a body lock pass. So Jordan plays with the knee shield briefly before quickly going to close guard, where Cesar Cesar seems to be intent on hunkering down and controlling the hips. And Cesar waits for Jordan to initiate with some movement so he can start working his body lock passing. And after digging for his bread and butter guillotine, Jordan decides it's time to heist up. And this is something that I believe should be a big part of your strategy if you're rolling with someone much bigger than yourself. We see Gordon using this heisting strategy against a beast of a man in Josh Barnett. And it's a tactic we hear being coached by Giancarlo and the New Wave team.
Changing levels, hip heisting.
And the idea is that while you're heisting up, your opponent wants to keep their head higher than yours, or else they're going to end up in a front headlock. So as they go to raise their head level as well, it makes it easier for you to dive underneath them. And if you are underneath someone's center of gravity, it's shockingly easy to elevate them, even if they're much bigger than you. And if you do this correctly, you may even get the legendary eyebrows of John Danaher to elevate as well. But again, we need to be careful because as we're heisting, we do take our back off the mat, giving them space to lock their hands. So the way this will look is you initially try to bring someone forward and threaten a sweep. But as they lean back to resist that sweep, that is when you initiate your heist. And if you're able to get your head higher than theirs, it's a great opportunity to go into your front headlock, which is exactly what Jordan does, and it's something he's very well known for. But sitting down for a guillotine against someone much bigger than yourself can be a risky gambit. And I'm not sure when it happened, but Giancarlo had to pull out of EBI because of a rib injury. And it very well could have happened from this sequence here. So with that in mind and Cesar doing a good job of defending the choke, Jordan transitions to the back. And when the dust settles, Jordan finds himself on the underhook side. And I'm not going to go into too much detail because we have a 3-part series on the back. So if you want more detail, check out those videos. But Jordan takes out his top hook. And if we're on the underhook side without a top hook, it's going to be easy for our opponent to turtle. But luckily, I think Cesar's a bit tired, and as he's catching his breath, Jordan uses this classic hand fighting sequence to trap the arm, where you use this straight grip to push your opponent's hand down as you transfer to the cross grip and ultimately trap their arm. But with his arm trapped and the impending choke right around the corner, Cesar decides to turtle to run from the choke and help free his trapped arm. But Jordan does a good job of maintaining control and this time getting to the overhook side. Now in an ideal situation, we're able to maintain control of the back and lock in that body triangle. But against bigger people, it's going to be difficult to lock in a full body triangle. So oftentimes we're going to have to settle for what's called a high ball ride, where we only have one hook in, but that one hook is reinforced with the strength of our second leg. And if we're on the overhook side, we now have full diagonal control. But when you try and use symmetrical hooks against large opponents, it often results in significantly less control and things going south very quickly. And Giancarlo used the high ball ride to control his opponent very effectively. And when it came time to trap his opponent's arm, he switched to the underhook side and took that cross grip right away. But unfortunately, from the overhook side, Jordan didn't have much time to work because Cesar was able to straighten his arm and go into this headlock escape that we've seen Gordon use many times under the EBI format. And this escape led to the two athletes getting back to their feet with Cesar on a rear body lock. And I definitely think Jordan had the ability to recover his guard, but he didn't want to put himself in a situation where Cesar was able to slow down the pace of the match. And from the rear body lock, Jordan puts his foot inside of Cesar's legs and rolls into this knee bar finish. Now, when I see this entry, the first person that comes to mind is Gary Tonon. And when I think of Gary Tonon, the first match that comes to mind is his match with Palhares. And I think this match had very similar tactics to Jordan's match with Cesar, and in my opinion represents the perfect strategy when dealing with opponents that are much bigger than you and have the ability to throw you at will. Now, Gary Tonon's strategy heading into this match was to break a leg.
There it is, Gary Tonon!
And he uses this elbow pass to set up his own form of chain wrestling and enter into the legs. And we even saw Gary work his way to the back and control Palhares with a single hook. However, it's very difficult to control the back of someone much bigger than yourself, but he primarily played a heisting game, where he would heist up from bottom position and threaten things like Kimuras. Now, in reality, that Kimura is never going to work, but as Palhares goes to stand to defend the Kimura, Gary tries to roll into the legs. And we even see Gary using this heisting strategy to try to set up his Kani Basami entry that he loves so much. But again, the idea remains the same. As we heist up and go into things like a front headlock and our opponent defends, that gives us the ability to get underneath them and enter into the legs. And the camera angle kind of sucks for this one, but Gary's biggest threat throughout the match was literally the same entry that Jordan used against Cesar. And they end up in the same knee bar position, but Gary decides to attack a very vicious inside heel hook.
You could break a leg doing that.
So I hope you all enjoyed the video. I definitely enjoyed working with Jordan. He has been super supportive of me, and he has given me a lot of guidance as I'm navigating the growth of my YouTube channel. So thank you, Jordan, for all you do for us YouTubers. Be sure to congratulate Jordan on his big win in the comments down below, and we'll see you in the next video.